Have you ever wondered why the older we get, the less we show up? Why do the once familiar visits feel heavier? Why does a living room feel more inviting than any gathering outside our door? It's not because we've stopped caring. It's because something within us begins to change, a quiet, powerful shift, the kind that doesn't make noise but speaks volumes. We no longer chase every invitation. We no longer force conversations that don't nourish us. We begin to realize that time is no longer endless, and not everyone deserves a piece of it. In today's video, we're uncovering the 6 unspoken truths about why so many people over 70 begin to pull back from social visits. But this isn't about loneliness. It's about wisdom, about choosing peace over pressure, meaning over motion, and presence over performance. If you've ever felt this shift but didn't have the words to explain it, stay with me. Because what you'll hear today may not only give you clarity, but also the courage to live more gently, more intentionally, and without guilt. Let's begin. 1. Saving energy for the connections that matter. As we grow older, something quietly begins to shift inside us. It's not sudden and it's not dramatic. It happens softly, like a tide slowly rolling out, leaving behind only what truly matters. In our younger days, we were constantly on the go, attending every party, showing up to every lunch, calling every friend, saying yes more times than we probably should have. We thought that was what it meant to be connected, to be present. But with time, experience, and a few hard-earned lessons, we start to understand something deeper. Not everyone deserves our time, and not every relationship is worth the energy it takes to maintain. Take someone like Harold, for example. He used to be the social glue of his neighborhood, always organizing backyard barbecues, sending holiday cards, even checking in with folks who barely returned the favor. But as the years went by, Harold noticed he felt more drained than fulfilled after these efforts. The small talk wore thin, the smiles felt rehearsed, and he'd come home feeling more alone than before. He began asking himself, who actually brings me peace? Who truly sees me? The answers didn't include everyone on his contact list. You start to realize that energy becomes a currency as you age, one you can't afford to spend carelessly. It's no longer about spreading yourself thin across a sea of acquaintances. It's about pouring into the people who make you feel alive, seen, and understood. These are the friends you don't need to impress, the ones who get you, even in silence. You don't need to explain why you turned down an invite or didn't return a call right away. They just know there's no bitterness in this change, no resentment, just clarity. You're not isolating yourself. You're preserving yourself. You're no longer fueled by obligation, but by intention. And that shift, while subtle, is powerful. It means you can wake up without guilt, choose peace over performance, and trust that the people who matter most will still be there, even if you show up a little less often. Harold now spends his time in fewer places with fewer people, but those moments feel richer. A coffee on the porch with an old friend, a phone call with someone who always listens. No more rushing, no more pretending, just connection in its purest form. And that, perhaps, is one of aging's quiet gifts, the wisdom to know that your presence is precious, and not everyone has earned it. 2. Steering clear of unnecessary stress and drama. One of the most underrated luxuries of getting older is the ability to say no to drama, to conflict, to anything that disrupts your peace. In your younger years, you might have tolerated it. You sat through tense dinners, smiled through snide remarks, listened to gossip you didn't care about, and argued about things that, looking back, didn't matter at all. Maybe it was about keeping the family together, maintaining appearances, or simply not wanting to be the difficult one. But at some point, you wake up and realize your peace is too valuable to keep trading it away. There's no rule that says you have to show up where you're not respected. And there's certainly no badge of honor in subjecting yourself to environments that drain you just because it's what you've always done. Emotional fatigue is real. Sometimes it's not the body that's tired. It's the soul that's been stretched too thin from constantly navigating the same arguments, the same toxic dynamics, the same cold silences that follow a fake smile. Meet Lillian. For most of her life, she played the role of the peacekeeper in her family. She visited out of duty, not desire. And every time she returned home, she carried a weight in her chest, a mix of sadness, frustration, and deep exhaustion. One day, after yet another tense visit, she asked herself, "Why am I doing this to myself?" The answer came back quietly, but firmly, "You don't have to anymore." So she stopped, not because she was angry, not because she didn't love her relatives, but because she finally loved herself enough to walk away from patterns that no longer served her. She started choosing peace over politeness, clarity over chaos. And in doing so, she discovered that it wasn't selfish, it was survival. As we age, protecting our energy becomes an act of wisdom, not avoidance. You start filtering your life like a seasoned curator, removing what doesn't add beauty, depth, or meaning. And yes, sometimes that means stepping back from people who expect you to endure their drama just to prove your loyalty. But true relationships don't come with that kind of price tag. Those who genuinely care about you won't guilt you for choosing peace. They won't pull you into emotional whirlpools or test your patience just to feel powerful. They'll meet you with calm, with kindness, with warmth, because they too have learned. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is quietly leave the room where your peace is no longer welcome. And when you do, you don't feel empty. You feel free. 3. Finding comfort in familiar spaces. There's something undeniably comforting about your own space. The chair that knows your shape, the mug that fits just right in your hands, the quiet corners where you can simply breathe. As we age, that comfort becomes less of a luxury and more a necessity. The idea of getting dressed up, driving across town, making small talk in someone else's home, it begins to feel more like a task than a joy. Not because we don't care about others, but because we finally come to understand the deep peace that lives within our own walls. Your home becomes more than just a place. It becomes a sanctuary, a space that reflects you in every detail, where the pace is yours to set, where silence is not empty but restful. You don't have to ask where the spoons are. You don't have to smile when you don't feel like smiling. You're allowed to just be, and that, in a world that constantly demands your energy, is a sacred thing. Take Richard, for instance. In his younger days, he was always out, golf games, lunches, visits to friends across the city. But lately, he's found more happiness in his own backyard than at any event. The breeze through his garden, the morning paper on the porch, the radio playing soft jazz as he sips his coffee. That's his rhythm now. When people ask why he doesn't come around as much anymore, he smiles gently and says, "I'm not missing anything. I'm finally home." It's not about shutting people out. It's about choosing peace over pressure. Because let's be honest, some homes aren't as welcoming as they once were. The noise, the clutter, the energy of the room can feel overwhelming. Maybe the couch is too soft for your back. Maybe the conversation never really includes you. Or maybe, after a lifetime of adjusting for others, you've just grown tired of being anywhere that doesn't allow you to fully relax. And so, you stay and more. You light your favorite candle. You read the book you've started 3 times. You listen to the clock tick while the world outside rushes on. And in those quiet, familiar moments, you feel a fullness that no crowded dinner table could offer. There's no guilt in this shift. It's not laziness or antisocial behavior. It's wisdom. It's knowing that life is too short to spend uncomfortable, unseen, or unheard. You've earned the right to enjoy your space, to protect your peace, to invite in only what feels good and let the rest stay outside the door. Home, at this stage in life, isn't just where you live. It's where you come alive. For valuing quality over quantity in your social life. When you're younger, it's easy to believe that a full calendar equals a full life. The more parties, the more friends, the more phone calls and group chats and coffee dates, the better. You chase connection like it's a race. You say yes even when you're tired. Show up even when you'd rather stay home, just to feel like you belong. But with age comes a general realization that not all connections are created equal, and that being busy doesn't always mean being fulfilled. Eventually, you begin to crave something deeper. Not more people, but the right people. Not more plans, but more meaning. That's where people like Carol find themselves. For years, she was a social butterfly, organizing gatherings, always calling check-in, making sure she stayed in everyone's orbit. But no matter how many circles she kept up with, she often ended the week feeling strangely empty. It wasn't until she paused to reflect that she realized something important. Many of her connections were based on habit, not heart. They were built on the fear of missing out, not the joy of being together. So Carol made a quiet but powerful decision. She started letting go, not in anger, not with bitterness, just with clarity. She gently stepped back from the acquaintances who only reached out when they needed something, the friends who filled the room with noise but not warmth. And what remained was golden, a handful of people who truly knew her, who didn't need frequent check-ins to stay close, who showed up when it mattered. There's freedom in that kind of shift. Freedom from performing, from pleasing, from pretending. You realize you no longer have to maintain friendships that no longer serve your soul. That it's okay to outgrow certain relationships, not because you become cold, but because you've grown wise enough to know what deserves to stay. The best part? The relationships that remain become richer, deeper, more nourishing. Conversations slow down. Silence becomes comfortable. Presence becomes more powerful than words. It's no longer about catching up on everything. It's about simply being together, even if it's just for a moment. And those who truly care, they don't keep score. They don't measure love by how often you show up, but by how real you are when you do. They understand that life gets quieter with age, and that's not something to fear. It's something to treasure. So, you stop trying to be everywhere. You stop proving yourself. You pour your energy into the people who fill you up, not those who weigh you down. Because in the end, it's not about how many chairs are filled at your table. It's about who still sits with you when all the noise is gone. 5. A shift in priorities and deeper self-reflection. At some point, the pace of life naturally begins to slow. Not because we've lost interest in living, but because we finally start to understand what truly matters. The things that once seemed urgent, the packed schedule, the endless commitments, the need to be seen, begin to fade. And in their place, a new kind of awareness starts to grow. You begin to look inward. You begin to ask different questions. What brings me peace? What makes me feel whole? What kind of life do I really want to live now? This shift doesn't happen overnight. It creeps in gradually. One day you realize you don't enjoy those weekly gatherings as much as you used to. Another day you notice that the people you once tried so hard to impress no longer hold the same power over you. The noise dims and something quieter, more grounded, takes its place. You find yourself savoring stillness, choosing solitude not because you're avoiding people, but because you've learned to enjoy your own company. Take Robert, for example. For decades, he was constantly in motion, running a business, raising a family, volunteering, saying yes to every invitation that came his way. But as retirement settled in and life slowed down, he found himself staring at his calendar and wondering, why am I still trying to stay so busy? So he stopped. He let go of the idea that his worth was tied to how much he did. And in that space, he discovered a different kind of fulfillment. Now, Robert spends his days more intentionally. He reads in the morning sun. He takes walks without his phone. He journals about things he never had time to process before. He's no longer driven by obligation, but by what feels meaningful. And as he puts it, I'm not doing more. I'm finally doing what matters. This shift in priorities is one of aging's greatest gifts. It gives you permission to stop running, to stop proving, to simply be. It opens a door to a deeper kind of joy, the kind that isn't flashy or loud, but steady and soul deep. You start to see life not as a list to complete, but as a moment to experience, not as something to conquer, but as something to feel. And with that comes a renewed appreciation for the little things, a slow morning, a heartfelt conversation, the way the light hits your kitchen table in the afternoon. This isn't withdrawal, it's awakening. It's realizing that you don't need to fill every minute just to feel alive. Sometimes the richest moments come when you stop chasing and start listening to your body, your heart, your spirit, to what you've been longing to feel all along. Because when your priorities shift inward, the outer world finally begins to make a little more sense. 6. Understanding that genuine friendships don't require constant visits. One of the most comforting truths that comes with time is this: Real friendships don't need constant tending to stay alive. When you're younger, it's easy to believe that relationships require constant calls, texts, visits, and check-ins to stay meaningful. You might worry that distance or time apart will cause things to fade. But then you get older and something beautiful happens. You begin to recognize the quiet power of connection that exists beyond the physical, beyond the calendar, beyond the need to always show up. Genuine friendship, you come to realize, doesn't ask for proof. It doesn't need you to explain your absence or apologize for the time that's passed. It simply waits. It welcomes. It holds space. Take Marilyn, for example. She used to feel guilty every time she declined a lunch invitation or forgot to return a call. She worried that her friendships would suffer, that people would take it personally. But then life changed. She started prioritizing her health, her rest, her peace, and the calls became less frequent, the visits more spaced out. Yet when she did connect with her closest friends, whether after 2 weeks or 2 months, it was as if no time had passed. The laughter returned, the conversations flowed, and the love remained. That's when it hit her. The people who truly cared had never kept score. They didn't demand updates or make her feel bad for needing space. They understood that life evolves, that sometimes we're busy, tired, or just in a quieter season. And instead of pulling away, they stayed quietly close. As we age, we begin to understand that proximity isn't what defines connection. Trust is, respect is, a shared history, mutual compassion, the ability to be apart and still feel close. That's what friendship is made of. It's not about how often you see someone, but how deeply you're rooted in each other when you do. We've all had friendships that required constant effort and yet left us feeling unseen. And we've all had others, few and far between, where just a 5-minute phone call feels like coming home. Those are the ones that matter. Those are the ones you hold on to. So if you're someone who's been feeling distant lately, who's wondering if you let people down just because you've stepped back, breathe. You're not a bad friend. You're just living more intentionally now. And the people who truly love you will never ask you to sacrifice your well-being just to prove your loyalty. Because in the end, true friendship isn't about always being there. It's about being real when you are. As we grow older, life gently teaches us that presence doesn't always mean proximity, and that peace is often found not in doing more, but in doing what truly matters. If you found yourself visiting others less often or craving more time at home, that's not something to feel guilty about. It's a sign that your priorities are shifting, and rightfully so. Start by honoring your energy. You don't have to say yes to every invitation. Instead, ask yourself, does this bring me peace or does it drain me? Choose to spend time with people who uplift you, not out of obligation, but out of genuine connection. Protect your emotional space. If certain relationships bring more stress than joy, it's okay to create distance. Let go of drama and allow yourself the freedom to choose calm over chaos. Embrace the comfort of your home. There's no shame in preferring the familiar rhythm of your own space. Home isn't isolation, it's restoration. And most importantly, trust in the strength of your real friendships. The ones that matter won't fade just because you don't see each other often. They'll remain steady, quiet, and true. In this chapter of life, your time is sacred. Use it wisely, live gently, connect deeply, and let go gracefully. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment with number 1 to let us know you watched the whole video. We appreciate it. Subscribe and hit the notification bell for more great content. See you in the next video.